The power of Gork and Mork has come upon us, for the power of the great Waaagh has risen, and the prophet of all the war bosses has risen to the top. So the orcs have now arrived for the orc balance data slate. So today we're going to talk about the point changes, Ghaz himself, some data sheet changes because GW really went over at the top here. They didn't just go for points as everybody kind of expected them. Really caught all of us off guard. First, they gave us a little sneak peek, then they let it go. So if you haven't found it, go online. You can find our Warhammer community. Go to the overall data slate. Boom, you can follow along with all this. If you have any questions, this is live, so let it be known. I'll be interacting back and forth with this as we go. So let's start off with the points because that's what everybody always likes to see right off the bat. Though I will say it's a little slimmer than we expected, but then we didn't expect rule changes. So beggars can be choosers. It's still really exciting to see. And whoa to the great chat as I see all you guys talking. Don't worry. So let's talk about what has actually changed for us in excitement of the cost. We have a beast boss on Squigosaur down 20 points to 110, as we had hoped for. This get is just the enhancement holder. Therefore, I'd like if his enhancement was free. And which one I'm usually talking about is Ed Wapa's Kill Choppa, 20 points. Boom, he essentially got that cost back for him. Really happy to see that. Makes at least him with a little unit of pigs or a big brick of pigs on Warhorde become more appealing. I appreciate that, right? Because he kind of can't really crump anything. Then we move to the big mech with shock attack guns, so the SAG mech. Kind of surprising that GW finally relinquished some of that vice grip they had on our necks, right? They were like, all right, let's pull that back. We had too much, we did a little too much there. 80 points feels about right. 80 points feels about right. Left tank busters alone. I feel like that whole combo is now at a what you would call fair point cost for everybody all around. So I'm happy to see that. As we're going to talk about, like I said, the detachments that are going to favor from this and everything. So then we have a 10-man unit of Ludas did go back to its original point cost. Very excited to see that. Happy to see that. It was quite unnecessary that they even got hit, but credit to GW for even noticing that, right? A lot of the things we're going to talk about today are actually very surprising that GW even took note of. I was like, oh, I guess I'll adjust these things. That it didn't take much effort from them anyway, so I'm happy to see it. But Ludas just kind of took some crossfire. They aren't really over the top, going to blow anybody's socks off, but they do help those crazy gets that were trying to play Dreadmob, those crazy gets that are playing more DACA, where some people like to integrate them into their tactical brigade list. So happy to see that. Then we have Boss Snikra. Let's go. Minus 20. That was impressive. That was impressive. A lot of us were even just hoping for 80, 85 points. I mean, he was sitting at 95 to go all the way down to 75. That's appealing, but they had to make it appealing because we're going to talk about Kommandos with that. So as my thoughts for Boss Snikra as a whole, we'll see if orcs choose to incorporate him. A lot of the time it was because of his point cost. Now it's like, well, if I want to pay for infiltration and paying for Mandos is still going to cost 120, that's still a lot. Well, 75, I can still get the infiltration keyword, get away with that. Uppy, downy, score some secondary. So as you know, some of these detachments might go more elite or favor still the elite style for the orc community as we move forward on this. That's where I can see Boss Snikra finding his way. But other than that, he's not really mandatory or going to be kind of always necessary on a lot of the other archetypes and builds we have for Boss for orcs playing, you know, MSU and such like that. So I still think it'll be a nice, really cut right across the center as if we'll see Boss Snikra. But I think he'll end up in like Bully Boys list, for example, possibly. But hard to say when we have Mando's changes. Then we go to War Bikers. War Bikers came down to 65 points, sitting there eye to eye with Storm Boys, right? It was, you know, Dev Copters or War Bikers or Storm Boys. Now this is slowly dwindling. And again, you kind of had to do this, which is cool. GW even considered it because when you're looking at the Kommandos, which we're going to talk about in a bit, then again, do you even need the other Warbiker units? Some people might start talking about. So I'm happy to see it. It really is nice for Cult of Speed. Cult of Speed is happy to see that they take even a little bit more juice because you know Cult of Speed's right there sitting on the edge of actually becoming respectable. But shout out to the War Bikers. We'll talk more about that. Then we have Mazrog Scrag Bag down to 145. You know, we'll give him a look. We'll give him a look today. We'll talk about it. Still happy to see that he took a cost decrease and that it was actually something somewhat significant. 20 points. Okay, cool. You got my attention. Let's talk about it. So then we have a War Boss in Mega Armor. He came down -10. That's different than the War Boss in the Big Mech in Mega Armor. He's still 90, but these guys took a -10. Happy to see that, because we also have Meganobz themselves coming down 5 points per model. So 2-man unit came down 10 points and such. So nice to see that, the point cost variations we can get here between the War Boss and Mega Armor and the Meganobz. So we're looking a little elite here as what GW actually looked at. And then a 10-man unit of Flash Gits got brought back into line down to 160. Left Boyz behind. Boyz still sitting at 170, but 10-man Flash Gits. So even though the big mech with custom force field didn't come down, it's because the Flash Gits themselves came down. So GW was cautious, which what they were trying to do here. So they gave you the possibility to still get stuck in, but they didn't want to overdo it by having the big mech constantly reflect the War Boss and Mega Armor. How do I feel about that? That was directly because Tactical Brigade didn't want to do that. And as for like the archetypes that exist for Bully Boys, as to would I even consider a Big Mech and Mega Armor, that 10 points difference might not make a difference if I'm choosing that style or not, right? Because the Meganobz themselves came down. So really excited to see this, but let's talk about what this is actually going to affect, because all of this comes next to the Ghaz changes. The blessings of Gork and Mork be upon Ghaz. The Prophet of the Waaagh ability, his leader section has changed. The Great Prophet has now put his blessings of Gork and Mork and power into the Boyz. Yeah, we got the Boyz keyword is now acceptable, and so is the non-keywords that also access the Breaker Boyz. So then we go, well, now this means that what about a Boyz unit taking War Boss? Well, that's War Boss keyword. That means Ghaz can go with a 20-man unit of Boyz. So let's take a look at, well, what if I take this character versus this character versus this? I'm a big, meat and potatoes kind of Orks player where I love 20-man unit of Boyz. I love this all these combos so many times that I just exactly kind of know exactly where I would feel with this. And most people will come down to cost on what else is going to end up on your list, because people usually have preference what they want to bring along. Aside a big brick of 20 boys, like a wagon obviously is going to be very common, but not always. So then when you start subtracting, adding different reasons and context to your list, that also would give some kind of credence to what you would take. But let's just overall my first looks when I look at it, right? If I'm going Ghaz, and what about a pain boy? One of the first things I hear in 20 boys. Well, what do I get from that? The first thing I think is, well, I get to feel no pain still. I get to keep the 5-up, feel no pain, which actually matters, because now Ghaz is at the very, very tip, right? When you're playing that 20-man unit of mob, where you're like, I'm out here in the front, I'm ready to get stuck in. The first thing the enemy's going to think is, if I can actually just precision out that character, bypass that 2-up invuln, and just punch out Ghaz, he's going to be sitting at T5, because it goes based off what the greater quantity of models toughness is, right? If you want to know why that changed, it's our fault actually as Ork players, is because when the edition started, we had a runt herder, right? And this is an example for you guys if you're a simple player and you don't want to understand this. When your runt herder's in your unit, when you actually look at your data card, he's technically T5 on his own. But when he's in this Grot unit and there's a bunch of Grot models in his unit, well, they're the majority. That means you're using that toughness. So same for a 20-man unit of Boyz. Ghaz is going to be T5, especially if he's getting precisioned. That's why I look at the pain boy and I go, well, if I'm just sitting on that toughness, now the enemy has to choose, well, do I even take that attempt to precision out the pain boy, or am I just, going in here and just getting crumped, and hoping that Ghaz can kind of just tank it on his own? So first thing I think is durability on Ghaz to keep him around, to force the enemy to actually chew through all of the boys. And then if they really a lot of people will use like one giant activation unit, right? They'll pull out their giant killy unit to try to dislodge this 20-man unit of Boyz if they can. Because if they use a bunch of little units, you'll start pulling you models and somebody might not get activated. So a lot of times people are like, well, I got a big brick to really annihilate that big unit. In that case, it might just end up that now Makari has to end up taking saves, right? And so the Makari's taking save, and then he might just tank everything and Ghaz is still alive, instead of someone just being like, well, I'm just going to go for Ghaz first. So then we go into the weird boy, right? And also that makes context for what detachment you're working for too. All of these, right? All of these, you'd have to ask me, well, if it's Bully Boys, what if it's my War Horde? What if it's my, whatever it is, Tactical Brigade? So then we go into Ghaz plus the weird boy. You automatically think the jump. So you think I'm going to take a Ghaz and 20 boys and I'm going to just jump over there right in your face. And I'm going to pop here we go with my Warhorde list and give it +2 to charge and just get stuck in. Just get it, right? A lot of people will think that even just having that capability for the enemy is, well, I'm not even paying for the wagon. When it's, when I'm setting up for my actual girl turn, I'll jump to the side of the table that I secure, and then I'll attempt to charge. If I don't make it, you might prick off a couple boys, but hey, then I'll just get stuck in with Ghaz because really I just need Ghaz, about 8 boys, the knob, and the weird boy to all stay alive. Because remember, Ghaz is giving this 20-man unit of boys +1 to hit and +1 to wound and critical 5+. And if Makari's still alive, that means it's lethal. So if this is Warhorde, you're getting critical 5+, lethal, and sustain on your 20-man unit of boys. You're making them move better. You're making them faster. And so a lot of the time, the weird boy is going to be taken into consideration for that. Then you can also just, string your 20-man units of boys out, right? Keep in mind, if you have Ghaz, or keep Ghaz still safe, let your boys run out, take a little bit of, attention, and let Ghaz come out to actually get some charges off too. So people will do that where they're going to sacrifice, this cost. And that actually might look something like Green Tide, right? We'll extent doing something more like that. Then we move to Ghaz plus the Big Mac. Yeah, let's go to Big Mac. You can automatically, we're thinking, you stick a follow me lads on him, right? And then if he's on the field already, you can then possibly pop here we go on him as well. The Big Mac re-rolls his advance naturally, so you can just feel a little bit more confident in that after you pop the CP for here we go. Then you also have the ability to move through models. So then you can actually possibly be able to just jump through people with Ghaz, which would be insane. Now, the enemy, of course, can make a difference in moving him back and forth, right, to try to offset where Ghaz can actually land. So people can play around it, but forcing them to play around it is the key, right? And so we love to see it. Now, how practical is that is? Now it comes down to what I said earlier when I started at this. Are you going for durability in your list? You have redundancy to soak up some of this attention from your boy units. Are you have other feel no pains on this list? Are you fast and able to cover the distance and then secure a safe location to drop weird boys in, right? For example, let's just be clear. If I'm playing Ghaz in a pain boy, would I play Bully Boys, where I bring other units that have feel no pains and then have access to 5-up invul multiple times throughout the game? Would I bring him a Warhorde where I can pop Ardent Nails and have other units that are pressuring and break the enemy's back where I'm really trying to amplify this damage? Am I picking a weird boy because I'm holding this back and I'm playing some trash weird version of maybe Cult of Speed? And I need to just cover the distance, or the hunt, and I'm just going to close the distance once my hogs go in. Then I just jump over there with my Ghaz unit, and I try to get stuck in after that with some squigs and my big unit of weird boys. Do I play a Big Mac because I like to play the movement mobility game, and I'm jumping out of a wagon maybe with a different unit with well, I guess you can't jump out of a wagon with Ghaz and the Big Mac, but you know what I'm saying. Either way, you're playing the mobility game here in that case. Then we move to Ghaz. Now this is what most people were wondering, right? Why would I take Ghaz plus 10 knobs or Ghaz plus Breaker Boys? What I really think is, well, anti-demon, right? You're looking at a lot of volume from these 10 knobs that are going in. You're giving them +1 to wound. So you're paying attention to, well, their strength is only 10, and I'm going into toughness 11. Well, they're getting +1 to wound. And if you're playing the right detachment, they're going to get critical, sustain, lethal, if it's just lethal on its own. If you're playing, a Bully Boys, that might be appealing for re-rolling hits, right? So then you already have critical 5+, you're re-rolling the hits. So now you're getting lethal, critical 5+, and wounding the demons on 4+. So you look at your Breaker Boys, and your Breaker Boys are low volume, right? If you know, and I know, if your Breaker Boys just then enemy spikes 4+, and your boys just kind of whiff a little bit, there's a chance your Breaker Boys don't, or if don't, especially if you're not playing Warhorde, don't actually punch out a greater demon, right? In this case, now it is a big cost investment, but this is about just controlling that table and being able to have that piece, especially if you're someone that doesn't own a bunch of Breaker Boys, doesn't play with 20-man unit of boys, only play with your Meganobz, you really want to use your Ghaz. Might not be the most top-tier competitive version of that, but that's the kind of tool that you now have access to, where you're like, well, I'm just going to just be able to completely maul something that has a 4-up invuln, even, right? It's just whatever. Put volume of punches on them because you still have Ghaz going in. That could even be considered of, would I put that Ghaz with a 5-man unit of knobs? Then we start looking that way where people go, well, why would I do that? Well, I'm just trying to get stuck in and not be solo with Makari. Most people are going big. You know, what if we break it down and bring it a little bit smaller, like a Breaker Boy unit? You're going to have this just one absolute missile where you just absolutely hate your friend's Canis. And you're like, that's fine. That's fine. I'm going to get you though, right? And typically, right, Ghaz, honestly, he'll whiff and sometimes into a Lancer, you know, into a Canis, whatever. And the Meganobz don't really bring that punch to help follow up and actually, you know, one shot take the enemy's teeth out, right? And so either of these combos, whether, you know, cost effective, whatever you want to put into consideration, you know, that is on you to really take into, to really think about. But that's something that I think becomes the appeal, because how you really find the answer to this is with today's sponsor, Adept Roll. When you're taking the math out for your 10-man unit of boys, your Breaker Boys, your big unit of 20 boys, that's either re-rolling hits or not re-rolling hits, critical 5+, looking for which character they want to do the damage profiles per each, you can take Adept Roll. And Adept Roll will give you charts, the math, being able to save all of these profiles for all these combinations that we're talking about and bringing forward today. So if you really need to find the answers for the way to run your Waaagh, and math is what you like to lean back on, well, Adept Roll is here to you. Don't just sit there and play with your tray. Don't get stuck in your day clouds of the Waaagh. It's time to find out what the big med got to say. So welcome to Adept Roll. All right, Gits. So now that we talked about everybody that, you know, we have seen that's familiar and exciting, well, what about Meganobz, right? What about Meganobz? Right, they came down in points. Cool, but were they ever even doing their role other than paying for a bodyguard, right? If you really just want your guys, you might just end up paying for 2 dudes, play the aura of Makari, and then play off the back of something else that's, you know, been talked about today or that's been changing. So it's not just that the, you know, Meganobz don't have a place. It's just that, in my opinion, you're end up just paying for, I'm just gonna take 2 bodyguards, enjoy Makari's aura, and that's totally still viable as an option. Doesn't think that shouldn't be slept on. And shout out to all the super chats. Let me look at the super chats before I move on to the next one, because you guys are all getting stuck in. We got Arcane Asylum with Ghaz's emojis. Whoa, for a $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Arcane, for all the support and channel member. As always, we very much appreciate you. I know you're getting really excited. You're wondering about what everybody's going to do with Ghaz and all these different models. So hopefully we answered some questions on that. And we have our boy ECOP for 5 Waaagh Tactic memberships. Whoa, to ECOP. Thank you very much, buddy, for all the support. As always, very generous, very supportive of you. You've been around since like the very, very beginning. So thank you very much for that. You get everybody check out our content on there and our after action report. Let us know how much we suck so we can improve, because we plan to bring more of those so you can actually figure out how to play all these detachments when I use them. Then we have John Anderson for 10 euros. Appreciate your content, mate. Top work. Whoa, thank you very much for the support, dude. That really means a lot to actually, you know, humbling whenever people do this and support. That's why I wanted to stop the thing, give you guys the shout out, because it means a lot. And thank you for becoming a channel member. Hopefully you can let us know what you think about the after action report, because with your support and your opinion, it means a lot. So let me know how we can make all of this better, because we're really excited. We're excited also for one of the gets around here. Where is he at? I think we've seen Red Ones goes faster in the chat. What's up, Red Ones go faster? I just want to jump Ghaz once in my life. Whoa, right? I can actually absolutely see you already doing that on your channel. Be on the lookout for that collab next month that we're going to do. And nice to see you for joining us. And everybody else, don't worry, I'll still get into that, but I just wanted to get into those first as we keep that Waaagh momentum going, because we still have to talk about, you know, what did you take, Ghaz, right? Now, that's going to really skew your list a lot, and it's going to just really come down to, am I willing to completely skew my entire list to bring the profit of the Waaagh? And, you know, we have yet to see where the meta lies, because a lot of different things changed. A lot of different armies changed. We have to find out, is there something to bang it out in the mid-table, right? GW got rid of challenger cards. It's time to really rack up the points as we can, as Ork used to do. Die for points, break the enemy's back so that they can't make a comeback. You know, is Ghaz going to allow us to bring that back-breaking effort, that full throttle damage, that just stay and pray kind of potential that the Orks have been lacking and needing? Or are we going to go back to our old ways? That's what I'm really excited to see. Now, is it going to be top meta? Not sure. Do I think a lot of you exciting gets are going to use it? Absolutely, and you should, because we're getting near the end of the edition. This is a time when you do everything. So thank you, VW, for this. I'm actually quite excited to even attempt this because a lot of people are just wondering, and it's conjecture. So let's get it real. Let's get it stuck in, and let's talk about the data sheet changes. Now I was going to write them out for you, but then it got a little bit wordy, so I'll just kind of read it out to you and give you my thoughts to give you some ideas and some feelings about it. But ultimately, very unexpected that even GW did any of these. So any somewhat negative comments I give on it, it's only in the sense of, would I take it at top level competitive play, or is it so close to being on that ledge that I'm a little salty because it needed just a minor tweak to get there. But other than that, very exciting, very happy to see all these changes. Now, right away, we go to the battle wagon. It changes to Ghaz, now takes up 4 slots. So then you have Ghaz is 4, then Makari is 5, and then you can end up just filling up the rest of the slots. You could take, a 10-man unit. You can take 5 Meganobz. You can take some SWAT teams with you. You can take individual character support randomly inside of there. You can just end up having this real nice missile unit in the mid table of the field if you choose to put Ghaz in there, right? Again, this becomes a very saturation heavy list of, well, I would have to then bring other viable targets of missiles of death that if the enemy can't pop the wagons and these other big transports that are coming up the field, then I can overwhelm them. So it's a lot of potential that's being regarded here, but then who plays 500 points on that? Well, what if I play this big brick in something like Tactical Brigade where I can then redeploy it? Right. So a lot of people first are poo-pooing it because it's a lot of point investment to just have this wagon somewhere in the field. But it really condenses that profile and allows the Warriors to stage up and just go on its go turn, especially on certain deployments that we see here. So it's something to be thought of. Typically, I don't bring Ghaz in that. Now, it's funny because it does have the keyword. Try the clarification in the wording, just as far as we understand it. You can still bring the killer cannon or the zap gun. But then that condenses the transport capability to 12. And then as for Ard case, based off if you open your app right now, it would say Ard case just turns off firing deck. But when you read the rest of the wording, it would say the kill cannon or the zap gun or Ard case take off that transport capability, take it down to 12. So with that being said, you can still assume that it takes it down to 12, but it doesn't prohibit Ghaz from being in there, right? Because he's only 6, so you can still fit units in there and still have this Arter, case and shell durability. So hey, I'm still happy to see about that. Like I said, then we have the Death Dread. Now the Death Dread, was one of those units that's like, man, you're almost there. 120 points though, still not doing it, still probably not doing it. But hey, I'm taking into consideration for reserves typically, right? At 120 points, because he did have an issue of, well, if I'm waiting to get him into combat, he has to hit, he has to crump, right? And you're like, all right, I got my saws attack, we're gonna get stuck in, I got 4 arms, I got 3 arms, whatever you choose to do. And then I just completely whiff because he's only 2 AP and he hits on 3s, and it's like, I feel bad. So in this case, you can just think of it as, well, now on the charge, on a 2+, the 2 to 5, he does D3 mortals. If it's on a 6, it's D3 plus 3. So that's nice. He gets that mortal wound impact, kind of like a Dreadnought or a Demon Prince. I think a Demon Prince is on 4+. So more like a Brutalis Dreadnought. A bunch of different versions of these, charges going on, like Rampagers and stuff. So happy to see that we actually have some version of mortal wounds on the charge again, alongside the Megatrack Scrapjet. So in that case, if you don't own a lot of buggies, maybe bring them in your Cult of Speed for any of these lists that kind of look for mortal wounds. Again, you can also use Tank Shock in that case, try to stack a little more wounds on someone to help finish them off. So Death Dread for the win here. At least he gets some rules adjustment, so he can be considered as a reserve unit, kind of a filler unit as you build out a collection, or you just like to use the gift. Then we go to Hunter Rig / Killer Rig. So what's happened here is they're not vehicles anymore. Pros and cons. Because I'm a weird thematic dork, I took it more of a con initially, but then when I think of the list in the context of when I use him and what he's near, he becomes a little bit more appealing as a monster, just slightly. So what this means is if he's not a vehicle, no access to Tank Shock. So no mortal wounds on the charge. boohoo. He's not really that reliable into combat. Now, he did get additional AP on his saws to 2. Still not reliable in combat because he hits on 4s, a lot of the time with most of his weapons. That means since he's not a vehicle anymore, it means that little baby mech can't walk up and give him +1 to hit either. Can't give him the jab. Very unlikely that most people did that. I'm just weird. But he definitely can't do that anymore. Now, instead of getting the tank shock, he can do heroic intervention. Most people would think, well, that sucks. Well, think about it in the context of what detachment you're bringing in. Well, if I'm bringing to hunt and people are coming, up to me and they're trying to get charges off on squigs or some of my smaller units, maybe one of my new commando units that we're going to talk about, in that case, well, I can fall back with my kill rig and the falling charge for 1 CP. So there are some cases where heroics will be cool. Maybe you got to get more stuff onto an objective for OC. Movement really helps a lot because these guys are big. Now you measure to the base, and instead of just its hull, so that'll help it with mobility, with some measurings, stuff like that. In theory, it would make them just feel a little smaller, but still they're pretty gigantic, and they did lose a little bit of benefit from that. So yeah, it's like a lateral kind of linear, kind of not huge buff or debuff, but that's where they're at right now. Interested to see how that actually plays out. How I play them, not typically my favorite thing, but it's also not that bad. If you're playing, to hunt, you could possibly get 3 AP on these saws now. Then we move to the mech guns, specifically the bubble chuckas. The bubble chuckas had really odd wording, so nobody ever ran them. It was just you'd have to roll per model. Now it's for the whole unit. You just roll. Boom. The bubble chukka, just roll D3 and whatever profile you're going to get for them, and you just roll 1 dice, and that does it for the entire unit. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. A lot of the time when I would even consider trying to use the mech guns and the bubble chukka in that case, I'd be like, oh man, I'm absolutely not doing that. That would be a huge waste of time. So it was always just default to the smash a gun, right? So there we are with that. And of course, check out the poll if you're just listening. Check out the poll. Let us know what you think. And then we move to the killicans. Now, I was excited at first because I thought it was just, a complete change to the killicans rules ability. I was like, all right, we're going to completely change and get changed. We're going to be saved on our Datasheet ability. Honestly, on a 1 or 2 for your shooty power trip, now it's just D3 instead of D6. So if you are one of those awesome, cunning, beautiful, fantastic wall tactic gets that runs killicans, yes, now you're at least taking less damage if you're going for that Datasheet ability. Nothing to scoff at, but also it's kind of still funny that it's still just D3 mortal. So no, you still need to take damage though. We heard you, but you still need to take damage, right? That's GW for us right there, but it's all good. And then we go to the commando changes. Let's just go straight to the next slide. Kommandos lead the way. So commandos have now inherited a rule called Patrol Squad. So this is fantastic. I love this ability. I've always loved this since I started 40K since 8th edition. I find it to be thematic. I like the choice options it gives you. I like the initiative it gives you as a player. It makes you feel like you're dynamic generalship, which is something orcs always lack. So the fact that we have I can make a cunning get ability here. So what happens here is I take my 10-man unit and I split it in half. Boom. Change it to 5 and 5. Now, people are already asking, what happens to my grot? What happens to my bomb squig? What happens to my gits and my war gear? Good question. Fair question. Now, the Sisters of Battle have this and a sister in an FAQ. Other armies do this. Space Marines do this for certain units as well. But what happens here is your war gear is dependent on you now where you stick it for this one unit. Both of these units do not inherit a bomb squig, nor do they both inherit a invuln as stealth from the distraction grot. One of those 5-man units is going to do it. That means you're going to break it in half, and you're going to take 5 basic Mandos with Choppa. Sorry, you get to the sacrificed ones, and they're going to be your early game. I'm going to block you and deny enemy infiltrators. Just take up positioning, stop reserves, save spot for my own reserve type of unit. And then you're going to take 5 of those models, and you're going to stick the Breacha, the Claw. You're going to stick the Bomb Squig on them, the Distraction Grot on them. You're going to have Choppas most likely still on them. You can choose the Rocket, the Flamer. You can just choose all those special weapon profiles you can end up choosing now. And then that means this 120 point dressed up, very fancy elite 10 boy model unit becomes 2 5-man units, and one of those units is actually 2 models. So that's 11 wounds, and you'll just say 60 points for each little combat squad, is what you would end up calling these a lot of the time. So these little combat squads, they're calling them patrol squads here, but these little patrol squads, then you can end up taking one of those units, and he still has infiltrator keyword, so you can infiltrate on the other side of the field. So one could be the unit that secures your kind of natural expansion area to secure the enemy, and then the other side might be, I'm going to harass the enemy, or I'm going to save this unit and I'm going to put it into a truck and play as another SWAT team, where now I have the claw and the breach ram and the bomb squig, and I can come out and do all these special things and actually get in a fight and kill people. Or I'll infiltrate, but not as aggressively, or in response to, well, if the enemy goes for that 5-man unit, I can take my 5-man, get to, now they can get, the get back on them. If you're playing tactical brigade in that case, well, then you have other options where you can pick someone up and you can decide, well, I'm just going to let this elite unit actually threaten the enemy home field objective, because typically you're like, well, I'll take this 10-man unit. Well, it's like, I can't even, fit that stupid 10-man unit. I don't even care. That's a lot of assets to throw in your backfield, to pretend you're going to throw in my backfield. Well, in this case, you're like, I still infiltrate, and then, well, I'm not going to pick up this more threatening unit. You didn't bait onto them and get them. So now it's like, well, I'm going to throw this in the backfield, or I'm going to take the enhancements of squad leader. We'll talk about that when we're talking about the detachments. We'll just talk about the detachments now. But ultimately, the first thing I want to say here, it's beneficial to all the detachments in staging and trading, right? So, either if you're a freak that plays Glory Hogs or Zod, or if you're just someone who understands the importance of denying the enemy's infiltrators or scouts, whatever it may be, you get to still do all that, and then keep 5 gets to do something else. That's what orcs like to see. That's what we need. When we were losing in a lot of these lists, or in tactical or warhorde, or everybody felt like we were just another 2 units short or 1 unit short. Maybe it's a big missile killing unit short, or we're just a trading skirmish piece short. Well, now I still have this tool that I really still want of infiltration, but now I get to really take advantage of it and still play into my game plan. This is what we used to have, and GW gave it back to us. Very considerate, very awesome. I'm actually very excited about that. And so, yeah. So with that ability being said, excited. Now let's talk about what detachments. So, in short, what do I think about each of these detachments? Some came out more than others on top, but we'll say Bully Boys, you would think gas damage. Now, some people would think, what I mean by that, I don't just mean the 20-man unit of mobs paying a pain wall. There is an argument for, I'm bringing knobs so that I can actually punch out an enemy unit and do re-roll hits and have this super hypersonic missile nuclear warhead that goes off for my knobs and Bully Boys, because that's something Bully Boys do not have right now, right? Bully Boys right now, they have, well, we'll hit you with the wall, but we're not really that killy. There's a good chance you survive, and then you get to get a comeback on us, right? So that being said, it's like, well, in this case, now Ghaz can end up bringing his potential at least multiple times and be exciting. So then we move to there's more options than that, right? In Bully Boys, I shouldn't have moved on, but there's still Snick Rot, because you're going to be playing more towards a pain wah. You're possibly going to use Snick Rot for that. Your Maz came down. Your Beast Boss and Squigglosaur came down. So if you were running it with Squig Hog Boys, you would get that as well. So nice going on here, right? Because typically a pain wah, if you didn't know, would be Squigs and Mans, or like Meganobz and Boy Bricks. Being able to just now be able, like, I'm going to incorporate Ghaz into one of these is freaking awesome. Then we go to Dread Mob, the return of the Ludas, right? At least for the 1 unit that would ignore cover, you don't have to pay that really annoying tax. And there was a weird one-off build that was, hey, I would bring a lot of Ludas, maybe even 30 of them. Do I still think that's something? Not really. Meta's kind of moved on from that. But there is an argument, and at least it didn't get caught in the cost fire anymore. And of course, the shock attack guns came down. And if you stick Ghaz in let's just say Ghaz in a Big Mac, and you're playing Dread Mob, well, then in that case, you've inherited the button, right? But you're critical 5+ already, and you have Makari. Well, that means you're going to choose the button, and you're going to choose sustain. That means now you're going to be pseudo warhorde in Dread Mob with your Ghaz and 20 boys. So now this 20-man unit of boys with a big mech and Ghaz are going to be +1 hit, +1 a wound, critical 5+, sustain 5+, lethal. Boom. Bam. Right? Dread Mob typically is like, we got guns, we got maybe mech guns, walkers, tank busters, we're not really sitting in that mid table and banging it out until you're diminished. Well, in this case, it's like, well, I'll just throw these 20 gets at you, you know, possibly pay for the man enhancement for -1 to hit on stealth. Let's go. So not saying that's going to be huge or whatever, but some gets going to go out there and blow everybody's head off. So then we go to Mordaka. Now, solo mods, right? Now, I still think Squighog Boys cost too much. I would have absolutely loved for them to come down. The reason I narrow it down to Mordaka is simply because I want to re-roll wounds. If there's his best ability is that he's going to get dev wounds off and his damage potential, he's already hitting on 2s. I'll take that bet. I want him to re-roll wounds because 4+ isn't good enough, and his multiple attacks only being dead from the mount mean I want to re-roll wounds. So there's a chance in Mordaka you can play Mazrog and actually feel a little bit better about him. You know, there's also argument for him in other detachments, but here's one I was talking about. Now, of course, you got the shock attack guns getting some play here. Maybe a crazy git's going to be like, no brainer, boys. Ghaz, 1 unit, 2 CP. Oh no, you can't do Ghaz 2 CP anymore. You have, oh, never mind. See, so Daka is just one of those things where you're gonna just have to figure out if you want to play more towards that strength. Warbackers coming down a little bit would be a thing. But yeah, more Daka. That's where I see it is. Not huge benefits, but at least some. Then we go to Tactical Brigade. So Tactical Brigade is the one detachment that I think gained the most. Between the changes to Kommandos, the changes to the shock attack guns getting a little bit of points increase. You know, I kind of think Tactical Brigade was already sitting at like, I'm pretty strong, I'm pretty powerful. You know, you could consider Maz in that detachment, you can consider Ghaz. You get access to fall back and charge, so the enemy has to now extremely prioritize that 20-man unit of boys anymore. That can say, oh, okay, Waaagh's over. Now they're just some slow, dumb unit over there. No, now they're going to fall back and then charge if somebody's still alive, right? If someone's still alive because Ghaz is in it. But that gives them access to that. Then Ghaz, from what let me double check, but Ghaz doesn't have the Meganobz keyword himself, does he? No, he doesn't. Looking at the keywords. That means Ghaz can give orders to his 20-man unit of boys, right? So he can give them stealth still. Okay, cool. Helping with that durability, especially if I ended up keeping that pain boy that we spoke about earlier. So even if you're sticking to that Ghaz theme, the Squighog Boy theme, the Snickrat, the Mazra, the Flash gets coming down 10 points, right? All of these little decreases. You lost a couple points here. You gained an extra unit from your Mandos that were probably already on your list here. You gained more viability from a battle wagon, and then the enhancement to redeploy a unit. So there's some viability here in Tactical Brigade that some cunning get down there still just their gears are going, they're getting ready to figure this out. Then we have Warhorde. Obviously, the mob just gets great strats, always having access to sustain. You're paying for the mobility. You got Here We Go. We talked about Here We Go. We got Follow Me Lads. So you can pop CP on the unit, +2 to advance and charge. You can stick a different character in there, pay 25 points to give them Follow Me Lads. Forget the battle wagon. I'm just chucking this unit down the field on the go turn. You weren't stopping me, and if I have a Big Mac in there, I'm running over you. Because I talked about that a lot too. Even though the Big Mac you would think is a Dread Mob preference, I always say I kind of think that the Big Mac always felt best in Warhorde because I want to be faster to actually take advantage of his ability, since it's really only useful, you know, in movement, for example. Also his new ability that he doesn't have to take like the take a desperate escape test and die is nice when it's only down to him and Ghaz and Makari and a couple of Knob or whatever, right? You're like, all right, keep this unit alive. Whoop. Still alive, harder than nails. Fall back. So that's pretty nice. Happy to see that. You can also pay for the enhancement for that if you really wanted to. Then we move to the Hunt, which we actually have some point decreases here. Now maybe they might slip in another unit. The rig changes can actually act as more of a monster fight for primary objective thing in the game, where it's like, well, I'm going to be able to heroic with my Squig unit now. I'm going to be able to diminish what you get into fights with my Squighog boys if I have this rig right next to me too. So the rig might become cool in that sense, a little bit more AP, a little bit more viability in that way. Other than that, maybe a Snick Route might find his way on their list as well, but not too much going on there. And then we have Cult of Speed with the biker costs. Bikers were already at one of those, like, I have a lot of wounds. Some of the Cult of Speed lists that we followed that were going 4-1, maybe even undefeated. Sometimes the units were taking max unit of bikers, back unit of Death Coptas, and just other fast wounds and pressure, chucking it downfield at you. So bringing down the biker cost even a little bit more might put, for my example, for my buggy list, I ended up upgrading to another buggy. I like buggies, though. I'm a weirdo. But very easy that you could just end up saying, well, I'm bringing more bikers and I'm bringing a different units getting upgraded that could do more damage. So I'm happy to see that. Nothing to scoff at with the boys, the war bikers coming down as well. So all of these detachments have something you can look towards, and also Green Tide, right? And put Green Tide on this list because Green Tide has such a low player base, and I don't think Ghaz just being thrown in there to giving them even more expensive stuff will be the answer. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Ghaz will be thrown into a 20-man Green Tide list, and I'm wrong out there. But as for these detachments, I think there's some direct, obvious benefits that you can get from these changes, and that you can look forward to any of the attachments that you look forward to. So I definitely want people to do that. And shout out to the Wicked Joe for 10 Walk Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa, he said Squighogs are back. Yeah, they are back, and they're cheaper in the sense that they already got a decrease, and then now the characters are coming down. I see it as free enhancement. I see it as an upgrade to another unit that can clap back and give them more defense, or kind of saturation of their on the battlefield of toughness, so that they can feel more defensive at least. So I'm excited for Squighog boys to come back, and excited for those 10 Waaagh Tactic memberships. So let me get some Ghazes or some Squigs in chat for Mr. Wicked Joe on that. And thank you for all the support, buddy. So yeah, looking at that, that's what we're seeing here. Now where the orcs stand, and after this I'll go over the live chat, keep this going a little longer, so if I miss something or I misunderstood something, you can argue with me right now so I can get corrected, or you can be a part of the rewatch gang and do it in the comments. But now where will the orcs stand? I don't think we're going to get a huge buff from this, because we're actually one of those armies that does get a big benefit from point decreases. Taking it from a couple characters and elite units isn't exactly what the Ork community was looking for. I say that's why a lot of people will consider, or more the competitive minded gets, right? That maybe someone's like, them Reddit guys don't think it's that good, right? Or whatever it is. No shout out to Reddit gets, but it's that they're thinking, well, maybe none of these, Ghaz things are really going to work out for us, and I'm just going to stick to my Mandos are going to affect all my lists and every one of my games, and that's actually the biggest change, right? So, someone like me, I go, well, like I wrote in here already, Mandos changes beneficial to everyone, influential to everyone. And so that's something that should be taken into play too, right? And then it's just Mandos might be the one thing that sticks around and stays. And is that enough to change our place? Well, what happens to everybody else? We lost some of our predators. Knights already getting buffed, debuffed right out the gate. Death Guard are still sitting in a pretty sweet spot. So it's like, well, Warhorde will be the place. Well, we got Tactical Brigade coming to play, Impair its Teeth, and all these other detachments. Challenger cards are absolutely gone now. So Orks being able to rack up the points and really bloody the enemy's nose, break their back, bring a saturation of units. These are all even more viable ways to play even now. Some of us, didn't think it was a big deal, but some people do. And in that case, now it's not even a factor, right? So that's absolutely fine. I think some of our opponents got a little bit more cost increase. We don't have too many predators, so I think it's going to really be about pilots standing out, and then we just see the meta kind of unfold. If it goes to a very heavy 3-wound infantry sort of meta, I think Orks are going to do probably pretty good in that sort of meta, right? So happy to see that. Then we also have my get out here with them balls. He says, what about Ghaz and 10 mobs and a battle wagon? I'm assuming you're saying just like a 10-man unit of boys. Yes, right? That's another way, just like I was saying with the 2 Meganobz. Maybe you just want some wounds so that you can't get to Makari yet and Ghaz yet, and you're just trying to check them down the field. Now, remember, he's still going to be a T5 Ghaz. So he might be too easy to snipe out. But if the enemy can overinvest in him, then it means they're going to just have to stick to Makari's invuln, at least for that activation. So it could be you could put 10-man unit of Boyz in there with him. Some people might think even a 10-man unit of Knobs is better, because then you're getting +1 to hit, +1 to wound on these dudes, and then they're smaller, they're less expensive. You still get benefits from Ghaz and a little bit of bladed wounds from Makari, so Ghaz can run in and maybe take an Overwatch if he has to. And then they're -1 to wound, so at least he still feels like he was T6, or even better, right? Because in that case, he would actually activate their Datasheet ability, which is -1 to wound. So even though he would be sitting at T5 when the enemy rolls it out against him, -1 to wound, you got Makari there. Oh, it says a War Boss model is leading the unit. So since it's the model, it doesn't count for Ghaz. I was wrong. I wanted to check that because I go, wait a second. I think that says model. The Knobs Datasheet. Let me see if I can show you guys. Right. Show you guys right there. I'm checking. All right. So no. 5-man unit doesn't get -1 to wound. None of this 10-man unit. I double checked that. Okay. So now we know. Because it says War Boss model, I think. Maybe, but it's in bold keywords. Let me know, chat. Maybe I'm wrong about that because I looked at it real fast. Nonetheless, you would still be considered. It says War Boss in. Yeah, it's War Boss all in bold. So I think that's good, actually. So it's just the War Boss model. But either way, it's a War Boss model -1 to wound. I think I'm overthinking it. Yeah, okay, because it was all bold. It does count. All right. Sorry, guys. I got too excited about that. It happens, though, when you're overthinking things. So I kind of think that's cool. Ghaz getting -1 to wound from the 5 knobs might be kind of interesting there. Oh, thank you, John Anderson. Red One says, is that going to work on Primarchs too? What's going to work on Primarchs too? Let me know. I guess I missed it. The Gork and Mork power? No, not until we're together. That's when the power of Gork and Mork's really going to shine. But thank you very much for that, Balls. It made me think. But yes, playing for a small unit onto Ghaz might make them more susceptible to being killed, but it does mean that you can get more stuff, and you still have this while I'm playing Ghaz more as a missile, and it's more on a volume of attacks instead of just these, handful of attacks, which is the real issue. Such a good ability of critical 5+, then you have Makari, so then it's usually just lethal, and then +1 to hit and +1 to wound. Well, that's usually an amazing combination of rules. So if you can give that to a unit that has a lot of punches in any sense, it might become the better way to do it, and just made it less of the entire army and more of your your greatest missile in the army. But thank you for that. Then we have John Anderson again. Sorry to hog the super chat, but delighted with the slate. List lock on Sunday for a GT. We've all been there, and to be honest, was dreading it. And now we got a fight going on. Whoa! Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're about to put it in, you're like, oh, I hope it's not. When you're pressing that button, I hope it's not happening this week. Poop. And then GW's like, happen. Sorry. Yeah. Then you know what? You had the right state of mind, because this wasn't meant to happen in GW's way. But hey, the prophet of Gork and Mork were just breaking through the eye of terror, and they were like, Mork's grin is going to shine upon the orcs. And that's what happened today. And you shined upon the great Waaagh of wall tactics. So thank you very much for the 20 euros. Whoa! And of course, you can hog the super chat. It means a lot. Thank you. It's very generous of you. And thank you for all the support. Hopefully I did you guys justice, and you can keep that momentum going up, because yes, we can keep going through this. A lot of different opponents got smoked. You can see people are saying right now, T-Suns, boom. Gene Stealer cults, boom, right? All these different units are kind of throwing down. You're like, well, world leaders. Well, I already felt fine into world leaders. Knights. Well, we'll have to see where they're going now, because they already got enough changes where they were already taken into consideration that we could actually beat them now. So it's like, hey, this might be enough to at least push us into, top of B tier, bottom A tier if you're like an excellent pilot. But if you're just a regular orc, you can have great games with just sticking Ghaz on all these different units and just seeing what happens. So be very excited about that. And thank you, John Anderson, for being very excited about that as well, because that keeps us all going with that wall energy. And as for you guys, we're getting late on here, but what do you guys else got to say? Someone said if Ghaz sits, he fits. I like that. So if Ghaz can be put in there, he's gonna be put in there. So I like that. Yeah, people are saying so the -1 to moon on the Waaghs. Yeah, I think because it's a bold, right? I had to double read it. Bold on the keyword. That means it's the War Boss keyword, which means that applies to Ghaz. Therefore, the knobs would get -1 to wound. Just like, when your tactical brigade sending orders around, which is also something pretty cool. So I'm excited. I think now you're getting infiltration. You're going to be able to play it a little bit different, where now we don't have to sacrifice a big dumb 120 points. And I think just that little bit of play is also going to make orcs feel better about their list capacity. Because now when you think about putting commandos in your list, you think, I got one just nice tool. It's just a tool. You're think about it like this, right? Simplify it. If you have the 5 Mandos, you get to play one extra phase of 40k. Right? That's what it comes down to being. You get to now play the deployment phase. You would not have access to this at all, right? Which means you get to not interact with scouts or infiltrators. So I know some people are still saying, man, it still feels bad. It's 120 points. Trust the process. Use 5 of those guys as a cheap little skirmish. Maybe it's defending something. Maybe they're getting picked up from tactical brigade. Maybe they're in the truck, whatever. And then use the other unit to play the game. But it's going to feel much better than it used to, as it used to be one of our rules. So I'm quite excited, and I'm excited the way of the Waaagh. So remember, Kommandos lead the way, and there's always one thing to keep in mind, is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa!